dreamer. Thank you for joining me today. In my last video, I went through the tarot decks that I am going to be rehoming. Not because I do not love them, I just don't use them. And it doesn't seem fair for me to keep them here when someone else could be getting more use out of them and maybe taking away more meaning. There were some that I just ended up maybe feeling a little more lukewarm about as time went on, or they just seemed like they served their purpose for me and I was ready to try something else. Whatever the case might be, they were predominantly mass market decks. There was really just one independent deck. And so today I'm going to be going through the oracle decks that I am going to be passing on for similar reasons. And I believe these are all mass market. So I'm gonna keep my bag of tricks right here on my lap now that it's finally shrinking down. But this was it was a pretty good declutter for me, because I can be, I don't know, I can be clingy, I can second guess a lot. It can be difficult for me to pass something on because I just don't know, like, oh, but what if I really miss it the second that it's gone? And I mean, experience teaches me that, yeah, it's usually fine. And the fact that these are all mass market decks, I can very easily reacquire them if I feel that I've missed them long enough. And I know that there are many others out there who will do as I do. It's not necessarily taking a deck and giving it away right away, but you put it in its little deck purgatory and leave it to sit for several weeks, if not months. And that is exactly what I've done. I've held on to these for quite a long time, have not gone to grab them at all. So it's time to move them on. So I'm going to be starting with the Sacred Self-Care Oracle. I would like to do a video at some point, a VR of sorts, to Lisa Pepez, whose channel, formerly known as Supportive Tarot, has a video where she shows her self-care kit and her recommendations for building one of your own. And the second I watched it, I was building one for myself, I think within 24 hours. And so I had purchased this. I don't think she specifically mentioned this oracle. I could be wrong. And apologies if I am wrong, but it was one I had seen before, and so I had this for my self-care kit, so I will make a video of what mine looks like sometime. But this is a great deck. I did use it. Nice little guidebook. Cute little backs. Artwork's okay. I think it's just okay. But you know, colorful enough. It did the trick as far as just wanting something to, if I'm feeling a little precious, feeling a little vulnerable, and I reach into my self-care kit for something to just sort of give me guidance, give me comfort, guidance on what I could do to take care of myself at that particular moment. It's a great deck for like giving you an actionable step to take. Make a vision board. Make a meal, you know, so watch a movie. So it's not just giving like positive affirmations to make you feel better. It's actually telling you, do this thing, read, journal. And the guidebook goes into further detail of why doing that thing is helpful, an act of self-care. It comes with journal prompts, if that's something that you'd like to do in tandem with it. It has mantras that you can keep in mind. So I just found it was a really, really cool for that. And, you know, going through it now, I'm almost like, well, do I really want to get rid of it? Do I really want to get rid of it? I think for me, really all I came down to was maybe on the last couple of my pulls, I was getting things that I just felt like, I don't know, like during lockdown, I pulled the card, plan a vacation. And I guess you could still plan, and even if you couldn't travel, and you could have that for a future date to use, or just even the enjoyment of like the possibility. There's a lot of fulfillment that comes from just the actual planning, even if you never actually do it. So I don't know. So spend time with animals. I mean, there were just certain things in there where I'm like, well, I can't like do this right now. I don't have a pet. I guess I could go sit in my yard and see if a squirrel will approach me or something, but I don't know. And those are just exceptions. I mean, most of the things you can readily do at any moment. I guess I was just finding that the ones I was pulling were things I didn't feel like I could like immediately go to, or it just wasn't really the thing bringing me comfort at that time. And so I think for what my purpose of it was for, I don't know. I just felt like I was starting to second guess if I was really getting the value from it that I was looking for. And then I saw the happiness chemicals. And I do think Lisa talked about this one recently. It's a newer deck. I have taken everything out of order, but everything was labeled originally for the chemical that can make you feel happy. And it corresponds with the deck backs. The different patterns and colors corresponds with each chemical, which is super cute. But I just took all mine out, shoved the labels to the back, and you know, we'll shuffle them all up. But this I just found to be maybe more what I was looking for this particular purpose, where I'm just like, okay, if I'm feeling kind of down, what's something that can make me feel good? Yoga bunny, for example. So what to do? Try some daily yoga, even just a 5-minute stretch sequence for 1 month. There are lots of free yoga tutorials online, and many yoga studios offer introductory passes so you can try different styles. Sing, like, I don't know, maybe it is a very similar thing for just giving a little activity that you could do right in that moment to release a happiness chemical from your brain and feel a little better and do things that are more healthy for your lifestyle and hopefully start a new routine for things. But again, I use it just for like finding something in that moment, what's something that can make me feel a little better. And so I have to say the sacred self-care certainly offers similar things. I think maybe it's just, maybe I didn't like the artwork well enough. And I don't know, I found myself more drawn to this. That seemed like even like simpler, more accessible things to do in the moment than some of the things that I was getting from this. And so I don't know what to tell you. I just, this just works better for me for what I'm using it for in this self-care kit. And so that's my decision and I'm sticking with it. But I think this one's great. Be very helpful to whoever owns it next. Next one is the Oracle of the Mermaids, the guidebook by Lucy Cavendish and Selena Fenich is the artist. And my goodness, her art is gorgeous. There's the back. Really lovely. The 2 cards that are going to be really hard to let go. Love this one. I got a print of it though, so I will always have it with me. And look at, it's just, yeah. The artwork is gorgeous. I don't know, some of the titles and guidebook descriptions just ultimately didn't resonate with me. I don't know. And there's kind of a focus on love, romance, and relationships with this. And so I don't know. I just didn't feel like it was something that I could use for all questions, and I think this might be a case too where it's pre-existing artwork, and so not that I couldn't like just try to work with that intuitively, but I don't know, with the titles in the guidebook, it's just a lot of them were falling flat for me. Like it just wasn't really feeling expansive enough for me to take a lot away from it and something that felt relevant enough to what my reading would have been, because I don't just read with the oracle cards, I just draw one to supplement a tarot reading that I've already conducted, just to kind of like punctuate it, kind of give a parting message in a nutshell. And I don't know, I was just finding that it wasn't really the messages I was getting from the Oracle just didn't really seem relevant to the tarot reading that I would have done. So I am passing it on because instead I have messages from the Mermaids. I just got this one last summer and worked with it for a few weeks along with my Mermaid Tarot. And so far so good. So far I'm liking it. Those are the backs. The artwork is pretty. I wouldn't say I love it, but you know, it's enjoyable enough. I love mermaids and I love the coloring and the diversity that you see also in this deck. And I felt like the keywords associated with them were driving a lot more with my tarot readings. It was just making a lot more sense. And the guidebook was just more accessible to me. I don't know. There was something about Lucy Cavendish's writing. I don't know. There was just something that something wasn't clicking for me. And so I just found this to be a lot more accessible and like readily understandable and relatable. And so far so good. We'll see this summer if it continues to be a fit, because another deck that I have that I can use with my mermaid decks, which are the Mermaid Tarot and Tarot Siren, or Cyrene, the same creator as the Marshmallow Marseille. So I've got my little Mermaid Marseille deck. And Dame Darcy, Mermaid Tarot. I love those decks. And so I obviously want like a mermaid or at least oceanic themed oracle deck to go with those. And so in addition to this messages from the mermaids, I also have Whispers of the Ocean. And this, so gorgeous. This artwork I do truly love. And in addition to just keywords, you actually get a little bit more text there too. So it's like you wouldn't even have to like run to the guidebook to glean the meaning of this. Just work right off of the card. And the images, I just think it's so immersive. I just feel underwater working with them. And yeah, this one's not going anywhere. I know that this one I will be keeping no matter what, even if I ultimately end up passing on my messages from the mermaids too. So again, this is Whispers of the Ocean Oracle. If this is replacing this for me, then this is replacing this. And I know this would break Katie Flower's heart. I don't mean to do that because she's lovely and this deck is lovely and I totally get her love for it. Part of it could be the fact that Katie actually lives in Australia and has familiarity with some of these creatures where, you know, I'm North American and now living in the UK. And so there are certain things that I think are like geographically specific to the coasts of Australia, but such a great deck though. I really do. I think the images are beautiful. It's more of this like Aboriginal art style, which also very special to that local region, and good keywords. You get both the animal or the, in this case, you know, coral. It might just be an element of the sea. And then it's strength. So you also get the keyword there. And so you get to learn a little something about what's being depicted, but then how it relates to that keyword. And the guidebook's great. Excellent, excellent messages there. And I did find that this one resonated really well with my readings too. I think ultimately with this though, again, maybe just because some things seemed like more region specific, but it's also it's a fairly thin deck. I forget. Shoot, sorry, I forget how many cards. Oh, I guess 36. This one, ooh. Look at me. I'm like, get my act together. Yeesh. 50 cards in this one. So I don't know. I think I kind of like having something a little meatier to work with. And I also just aesthetically like the more realistic depictions. Not that I don't have great love and respect for this artwork. It's so pretty. It's so pretty. I think just when I'm laying it with the other cards, it really came down to like when I lay this side by side with the Mermaid Tarot, it looks really pretty. The art styles just sort of blend together a bit better. And so that's a purely aesthetic thing. So honestly, I don't really have a negative to share about the saltwater reading cards. I think it's a beautiful deck, a really well-written guidebook, and it is worthy of someone's love. So I hope it finds a good home and does get some good use. Okay, so next up on the theme of animals, not specifically of the aquatic variety, but in general, wild unknown animal spirit. I love this deck. I do use this deck. I plan to continue using this deck. This specific copy of this deck is being rehomed simply because I already have another copy of it. I haven't been using my wild unknown decks like the tarot or this one a lot lately, but I do love them, and I know that they're just decks that I'm always going to use. Oh gosh, I'm blanking on the channel name now, but there's a suggestion given out there of writing the meanings and like actions you can take for each animal energy on the borders. And so from the guidebook, I've done that so that I can work with the card more without having to run back and forth to the guidebook all the time. But I'm sure this is very familiar to many folks out there. So yeah, this is my working copy where I have used my horrible printing to add that, but I like it. I love it, in fact. And so I just have this second copy because, bless him, my husband was just being nice. He didn't realize that I already had it. And he had stumbled upon a bookshop and saw tarot and oracle cards there, and knowing I loved them and wanting to surprise me, he picked up this extra copy. And so I thought it was so sweet. So I did actually hold on to it, and I thought, well, this actually could work out really well since I did write all over my other copy. It'll be good to have a clean copy. But I mean, honestly, for like as much as I'm using the deck and the writing on it doesn't bother me at all, I really don't need to have two copies. So this one's like in pristine condition. So it's a very easy one to rehome, and someone will have it and it'll be just like new. So that's all that one's about. So moving on to Astrology. Oracle of the Radiant Sun, also in pristine condition. I have not used this at all. I got on a real kick where I was hell-bent that I was going to learn more about astrology and incorporate it more in my tarot practice, and I do still intend to do that. I just have not carved out the time to sit and properly study it. But you know, so this has its guidebook. I don't enjoy boxes when they split the deck like this, but I'm not even gonna pull this whole thing out. It's just, yeah, I can't even tell you what this is. These keywords, I haven't worked with it. I watched the 3 Fat Readers, Lisa Pepez, Dustin, Danny Mystic, talk about it because they all have it, they all use it and love it, and I trust anything that they say. So I don't doubt that it's great. I think what happens is that I bought in a book on using astrology with tarot, and then I bought this, and then I bought the Heavenly Bodies astrology deck, and I don't have, there's the bigger box, and it also came with, oh, here we go, guidebook. I think it's because I bought all these things at once and I just kind of overwhelmed myself. And I realized that I wasn't really like sitting and properly studying and digesting everything, and that having too much, it was actually psyching me out against getting involved in it. It just felt like too much. And so, excuse me, I did sit and read through this, and it is such a cool system. If you haven't seen these cards or seen the walkthrough, anyone do a walkthrough, you know, the images are very pastel. I'm not like a huge fan of that because it's kind of hard to see, but the brilliance of these cards are in the text at the bottom, because ultimately, basically, the way you can lay them out, it becomes a sentence that you can connect together, and it's so cool. And I really connected with that. It really made things a lot easier for me to understand. I can see finally committing to memory the main traits of the different signs and planets and just everything that this slices and dices. It's just, it's presented in a very easy to understand and retain manner, where this sort of intimidated me a little bit. I feel like once I have the basic groundwork, this might be something to revisit, because I'm sure it's brilliant and would take things to a whole other level. But I'm just like, I just realized I'm not looking to be super savvy at this. I'm just looking for a very basic way to incorporate it in my tarot practice. And I readily saw how this deck will satisfy that, and I think I'm probably going to be good. And it might not even require committing anything to memory, because there's so much on the cards and in the guidebook that I can reference and just, you know, get messages pretty speedily. And so I think I'm just going to leave it at that. And if I ever want to go more in depth with astrology, I know that there's a lot of resources out there like this, but I just feel like I'm not interested in going further with it than this, so I'm good. I am surrounded by decks and books, but okay, so I'm just making sure I didn't misplace anything. Okay, last oracle deck that I will be rehoming, Open Portals, James R. Eads. This is the lighter version of this deck. It's basically like playing card stock. So where it has the lighter background. And this comes with instructions on how to use these cards for both a card game and as an oracle deck. And, well, one main reason why I'm rehoming this deck, which has its instructions all right there, I didn't know where I put it, and it's right in front of me. I've got the darker version of it. I bought both, thinking, there's the dark back. I edged mine in black. I bought both thinking, well, maybe I would use one as the oracle deck, and then I'd use the other one for playing the card game. And I looked at the instructions for the card game and was like immediately confused by it and was like, who am I actually going to play this with? Like, I don't know anyone else who's really interested in that stuff. So I just was like, the card game, probably not happening. So I was like, okay, I'm probably just going to use it as an oracle deck. Okay, fine. Still cool to have 2 copies of it, because one might, if I'm using it in conjunction with a tarot deck, one might look better aesthetically with one certain decks or another. I think I also thought I could do like light and shadow with it, and that would be neat, but I just never did. And honestly, I'm not even using one of them very much at all. I very nearly threw this in with all these other decks to rehome, and I'm only holding on to it to give it another go, because I do have the Cosmovisions Oracle that I want to study and work with more this year, or at all. I haven't worked with it at all yet. So I was curious, like, if this would end up being like a neat little companion with that deck. And so I just feel like I'm gonna give it that other shot, and then we'll see. Otherwise, I used it a lot with my Children of Litha tarot deck, and they looked very cool together, but I have rehomed my Children of Litha. I just wasn't using it. And so, I don't know. I don't use this a lot. I find myself reliant on the guidebook of what the portals mean. It's not a deck where I can lay it out and just sort of get a real intuitive feel for it, but I still feel like it's something cool. It's clearly a very well thought out system. And I feel like I owe it and to James to get to understand that a bit better. And so I'll hold on to this, but I will rehome the light version. The last deck that I have here, not Oracle in the sense of these other ones, but not Tarot either, Lenormand. This one's super cute. Like, if you don't have a Lenormand deck, or Lenormand, however for the pronunciation, this is a great one to have because it's just how cute. It's got the insets with the playing cards, really cute artwork that clearly expresses what the card is meant to be. It's just adorable, and it has a nice guidebook, and so you wouldn't want for anything with this deck. I think it's just a good, straightforward, adorable little Lenormand deck. For me, I just feel like I do have several Lenormand decks, and how many does one really need when it honestly has nothing to do with the art style? It's not like you're going to take a different interpretation based on the artwork. It's just a ship is a ship is a ship. Mice are mice are mice. The meaning is what it is across decks. And so the only reason why I do have different ones is just like aesthetically, again, to pair with different decks. So I might have a more gothic one to pair with darker tarot decks, or I've got one that I use with my moon readings, the Clair de Lune Lenormand, because it just thematically seems to fit with that, whatever the case might be. And as far as just like a basic, straight up, non-themed deck, which the maybe Lenormand is, just sort of like a classic deck, I feel like that is satisfied by James R. Eads' Green Glyphs Lenormand. And what I like with this one too is that he's used a color coding system to help indicate the degrees of positive or negative or neutral the cards can be. And so this is like, so while I might have other Lenormand decks, again, that follow a certain theme in their style, just to pair with different decks, like, again, it could be something seasonal, it could be something Halloween, like, hopefully you know what I mean. But as far as just like a straight up Lenormand deck that's not pursuing a particular theme, I just really like this, and I appreciate the color coding. It helps me see if you're doing a bigger reading, or if you do a tableau, you can see those patterns emerge more readily. And because I'm it's not even that I'm a novice with Lenormand. I understand it. I know the card meanings and I understand how the tableaus work. My brain's just not very good at doing it. Like there's something that just doesn't connect for me as well as like I can connect with tarot. So I don't think I have anything more to learn about Lenormand. I just need to figure out how to wire my brain so that I know I can do it. So anyway, so because it's something I don't even really do that often anyway, if anything, I'm not really like reading the tableaus. It's mainly, maybe I'll pull like a pair or 3 or maybe like up to 5 to supplement a tarot reading just to get a little clarity and get that like very direct, no nonsense, practical voice that Lenormand can deliver so well. You know, so I don't need a lot of decks, and when it comes between the two of these, I just prefer the James R. Eads ones, but this one is absolutely lovely. And you know, if I hadn't gotten this and found myself feeling like, oh, I'm doubling up a bit too much, I would have been perfectly fine with this one. So, ooh, I thought I was done, but there is a little oracle deck left. The mini Pathfinder, which I just bought this because I actually purchased original art from Skull Garden, and I had gotten the Earthbound Oracle, which is great. And then this was like on the website as well for just an extra $13, so US dollars. So I was like, yeah, sure, throw it in, because it seemed intriguing. The square style, and where you can have, depending which symbol is up, can affect the interpretation of it. The one thing with this though is that for the mini, there are no keywords on the card, and so you have to have the guidebook unless you know what it's supposed to be, or if you want to go in for a purely intuitive read. But I mean, I'm like, I'll have the Earthbound Oracle. That's very like straightforward for me. This is really pretty artwork, and it was like another way to appreciate more of his artwork, especially since I got an original. So it's obviously something that I do enjoy and I have hanging on my wall, but I'm not going to work with this realistically. I have a lot of oracle decks. Points for creativity for approaching it in that like diamond style that can add different nuance depending on how it's turned around, but I'm not going to work with it. I just know I'm not. So that's it. So I'm going to pass it on, and I feel kind of bad whoever ends up with it isn't going to have any sort of guidance, but hopefully they'll go to the website and get a PDF of the guidebook. So there you have it. I have a huge mess to clean up now. But thank you so much for sticking it out with me if you did. And let me know in the comments if you own any of these decks, if you love them and could never part with them yourself. If you think that some of these, again, I do feel like because these are mass market, I could easily get them again if I find I do have a need or a want for them in the future. And so if there are any that you think are definitely deserving of another look, for something for me to reconsider down the road, let me know. Or if you felt the same way about any of them like I did, yeah, I'd love to hear about it. So in the meantime, take care. Bye-bye.